Windows OS exists in more than 80% of enterprise computers and environments. So because of its user friendliness, because of the fact that it has so many files and utilities and settings, features, it has so many bells and whistles, and it's fairly intuitive because there is a GUI, a graphic user interface. It's very useful in the enterprise world because people don't have to learn the command line and they can get the things that they need to get done. And Microsoft just happens to be one of the biggest computer providers in the world. So even if you buy a Lenovo laptop, it'll come pre-installed with Microsoft Windows. And since Windows is as dominant as it is inside of the computer space, it's very important for you to know it as a cybersecurity analyst and somebody who's going to go into pen testing and ethical hacking, so on and so forth. So today we're going to go through a four-part series, or we're going to start a four-part series for Windows. And this is as a part of the CySec 101 pathway of TryHackMe, where we're going to essentially talk about three different rooms that are on Windows, the fundamentals of Windows, and then ultimately we're going to go into the Active Directory, Windows Active Directory, so that you can understand what that entire process is, how users are managed, and what is important about it when it comes down to security and pen testing. So first and foremost, we're going to go into Windows Fundamentals Part 1, and then we'll do Parts 2 and 3, and then we'll go into Active Directory. So let's get into it. As our task introduction, we're going to go to attempt to provide a general overview of just a handful of what makes the Windows OS, and then navigate the user interface, make changes to the system, etc. The content is aimed at those who wish to understand and use Windows on a more comfortable level. So if you don't know how to use Windows, which I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't know how to use a Windows computer. Maybe my mom. That might be the only person that I can think of that would need to learn how to navigate a computer. But just in case that's you, no judgments at all whatsoever. We're going to go over a general overview of Windows. And I'm going to give you some side notes about what to keep in mind as we progress in this pathway, because ultimately we are talking about cybersecurity. So that's the big piece to keep in mind, that we're definitely going to go over the basics of Windows, but the basics that we're talking about is in the context from the perspective of a security analyst. And I really want you to just kind of get that perspective ingrained in your mind. So maybe you already know how to use Windows, but you don't know how some of these basic utilities apply in the world of security analysis and penetration testing. So that's the big piece that we're going to talk about. So we've been given a virtual machine. I already have logged into the virtual machine. As you can tell, that this used to be a bright green, like this green that you see at the top right here. I've already started it. If you have access to the OpenVPN connection with TryHackMe, you can go ahead and use the machine IP, user, and password to set up your remote desktop and log in via RDP. And there's something for Mac OS and Linux as well that will allow you to RDP into it. If you use the command line, you can also RDP into the remote desktop. I believe it's X-free RDP. That is beyond the scope of this room, so I'm not going to be talking about how to actually use the Linux command line to RDP into a Windows machine. So just, if you can, get yourself a membership. It's not even a paid membership, it's a free membership to TryHackMe that will give you access to this room. And then once you just register your username and email address, you'll get access to this room, and you can launch that virtual machine that is going to be a Windows machine that we'll be using. So if you have a Windows computer already, you could just click around the way that I click around and find everything that I'm finding here within your current Windows computer. So you don't even need the virtual machine that I'm using. I'm doing all of my recording on a Mac OS, so I have to do this so I can show it to you on a Windows. But apart from that, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's the entire requirement for the setup of this lab. So let's talk a little bit about the additions of Windows. The Windows OS has a long history dating back to 1985 when it was currently developed, or when it was first developed. Right now it is the dominant OS in both home use and corporate networks. Because of this, it has always been targeted by hackers and malware writers. Windows XP was a popular version of Windows and had a long time running Microsoft announced Windows Vista, which was a complete overhaul of the operating system. There were many issues with Vista. It wasn't received well by Windows users, and it was quickly phased out. When Microsoft announced the end of life date for Windows XP, many customers panicked. Corporations, hospitals, all of these computers that were being used in the enterprise environment, they scrambled and tested the next viable Windows version, which was Windows 7. And against many other hardware devices, when vendors had to work against the clock to ensure that their products worked with Windows 7 for their customers. If they couldn't, the customers had to break their agreement and find another vendor that upgraded their products to work with Windows 7. So it was a nightmare for a lot of people, a lot of companies, and everybody that was involved. And Microsoft obviously, hopefully, took note of it, but they did, of course. So Windows 7, as quickly as it was released soon after, was marked with an end of support date. And then Windows 8 came and left, and it was very short-lived, like Vista. And then we had Windows 10, which is the current Windows operating system for desktop computers. It comes in Home and Pro versions. And you can read the difference if you want to by going to the actual documentation of Microsoft to just look at the various versions of Windows. And then there's Windows 11, apparently. That is over here as well. So Windows, welcome to Windows, yada, 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 so on and so forth. So what we are going to, even though we didn't talk about the servers themselves, the current version of the Windows operating system for servers is Windows Server 2019. Many people like to actually bash on Microsoft, but they've made a lot of strides to improve the usability and security with each new version of Windows. And the addition for the attached virtual machine that we're going to be using is Windows Server 2019 Standard, as seen in the system information. As of June 2021, Microsoft announced their retirement days for Windows 10 here, and they're going to support at least Windows 10 semi-annual channel until October 24th, or excuse me, up to October 14th of 2025. And as of October 5th of 2021, Windows 11 is now the current Windows operating system for end users, which we saw through their website. So that is the gist of it. Now, the question here is something that we would have to recover from the Windows website itself, or you could just Google it based on what we learned from our search skills. So what encryption can you enable on Pro that you can't enable in Home? So if I do this right here, it typically will just bring up all of the articles associated with TryHackMe. But we can do this. We can do on Windows Pro that you can't enable in Home. And right there, you can see at the very, very top of the screen, it says BitLocker Drive Encryption. This encryption is available on supported devices running on Windows 11 and 10 Pro, Enterprise or Education, but it is not available on Windows Home. So that is the answer here. BitLocker is the answer for our question. And now we can move on to the next task, which is the desktop graphic user interface. And for this, I don't need to open up the machine yet because we actually do have some screenshots going. So I'll just use the screenshots for the sake of brevity and to make things quicker. All right, the Windows desktop, aka the GUI, the graphical user interface, is the screens that welcomes you to log into a Windows 10 machine. So traditionally, you need to pass the login screen first, and then once you're actually in, that's where you see the GUI. And in order to log in, obviously, you need a username and password. So this part should be fairly intuitive. It should be fairly simple for you to wrap your head around. The username and password is assigned via Active Directory if you are in some kind of an enterprise environment. But if it's on your personal computer, it is still technically Active Directory that assigns that username and password to you, but you get that username and password as you boot up your computer for the very first time and you sign up for your username and your password when you go through the basic instructions for the sign up for it. And then when you actually get into the GUI, this is essentially what it looks like, right? So the number one that you see right here is assigned to this entire the desktop environment. And then at the very bottom right here, we'll see that we have number 2, which is for the Windows icon that opens up the full menu. And then when you open this up, you get to go into the File Explorer, you get to look at the settings, control panel, a lot of different things that you can browse through the computer to try to find the piece that you're looking for. But if you really know what you're looking for, then you go inside of this search box right here and just type it out. So you're looking for a command line, you just type in CMD and it opens up CMD. If you want PowerShell, you type that in. If you want the event viewer, you type that in. So if you know what you're looking for, you just type that in, and it'll actually even bring up settings inside of the control panel, literally anything that has a name. You can just type that name for it and it'll bring it up. And then if you have some kind of a descriptor of what you're looking for, it'll probably help you find a few options that may match what you're looking for as well. And we actually have a few screenshots here that are very useful for us as well. So if you actually right click on the desktop, you'll see a menu that pops up that shows you a variety of options, like for example sorting by name or the date of the creation of something if you wanted to create a new file or a folder. If you go to the display settings, there's an option when you do that right click, there's something called the display settings, and if you click that, it'll open up the settings menu and it'll take you directly to the display. And then you can choose a variety of different things to just customize your display for yourself. And then you can click on personalize by just, again, that right click. So if I right click on my screen right here, if you did that same thing on the desktop, which is this giant blue section, if you did the right click on this desktop, you'll be able to see these various options. And then if you click on personalize, it'll take you to personalizing your wallpaper or the background, so on and so forth. So you can change the background image to the desktop, change fonts, theme, color, schemes, all of that can be done with that. And then when you click the start menu, which was that little blue, that little icon on the bottom left corner of the screen, this is what pops up. So this is the start menu, and inside of this you have a variety of different options as well. So the first one would be quick shortcuts and actions that you can perform, which is this piece right here, and then you can modify these shortcuts to give yourself all the personal options that you would need. And then you have these pieces at the bottom of it right as well. So this would be the left hand side of the screen when that menu opens up, where it shows you the current user that's logged in. You can get a quick shortcut to the documents, quick shortcut to the pictures, settings, and of course the power options. Then you have your recently added or recently browsed that are also available in this section as well. And you can see things that you have obviously interacted with very quickly, and the stuff that you can find via just a scroll. Like you can scroll up and down and find the variety of different installations, services, software, anything that's available on that computer, and that's all available in that menu. If you have a long list of apps and programs, you can jump to a particular section by just clicking on the letter that's associated with it, and it'll just go to the series of programs that have that letter as the name. So the white letters match the letter headings. Then there is the right side of the start menu, and these are known as the tiles. And within this, you have the key pieces as well, and you can actually even customize this view. So resizing the tile, unpinning it from the start menu, viewing its properties, etc. You can do a lot of those things by just right clicking on one of those tiles to see what all the available options are for that. And then you can go through the list of programs that you have, and then you can pin them to your start menu, and they'll show up in the tile view section right here like this on the side. So these are your tile views, and this is what comes pre-configured with the Windows machine. And then when you add something like Google Chrome, then that'll be a new tile that's installed right here under your Windows machine. Then we have the taskbar. The taskbar was this piece right here. So let's actually review this one more time just so you can kind of see what all of these things are outlined. So let me just go back to the very, very top right here. So this piece number 4 is our task view, the taskbar. So when you click that icon, it brings up the task view for you. The taskbar itself is this piece at the very, very bottom right here. So if you have the Windows Explorer open right here, if you have Google open, all of the icons with the associated tasks or the software services will all be inside of the taskbar. And at the very right side, you see the toolbar right here. And then we have the notifications area at the bottom right as well. And then when you click this arrow, this up arrow that is at the notifications area, let me zoom in manually here. If you click on this arrow right here, it'll bring up another little pop-up, and within that, it'll show all of the stuff that's currently open. And we'll probably talk about that in a little bit as well. So the current thing that we're looking at is the taskbar, right? So we will go all the way back down here, and we'll just find the section that we have for our taskbar. So some of the components are enabled by visible by default. So the toolbar, which is the enabled for demonstration purposes. That was the piece that we saw on the bottom right there. If you're like me and you want to disable some of these things, you can right click on the taskbar, bring up a context menu that'll allow you to make those changes, which means show the task view or lock it or remove it, so on and so forth. All of these things can be done by clicking on the taskbar or the logo inside of the taskbar. Any apps, programs, folders that you open will appear in the taskbar like so, that we see right here for Google Chrome. Hovering over it will provide a preview thumbnail along with a tooltip. The tooltip is handy if you have many apps and programs open, such as Google Chrome, and you want to find which instance of Google Chrome is the one that you need to bring into focus. So it'll show you a display of what's actually on that specific window. So if you have, 5 different Google Chrome windows, you can open up the one that's most relevant to what you're looking for, and you don't have to click through all of them, basically. Then we have the notifications area, which is in the very bottom right as well. That shows you essentially any new notifications that pop up. It shows you the date and time. It shows you a variety of different intel that is associated with the programs that you're running. And then you can, of course, add and remove icons to that specific area. And then you can view the various things that are open by clicking on this up arrow, and it'll show you what all the softwares are that are currently open. It doesn't show you anything other than their actual logo for it. And if you wanted to force close it, you could just click on that, like right click, and then you can just do close, and it'll close everything. So if you have 5 Google Chrome windows that are open, if you right click on the Google Chrome icon that's inside of this arrow, and if you close that, it'll close all of your instances of Google Chrome. So be careful about that. Then we have the taskbar itself notifications area. So select which icons appear in the taskbar, turn system icons on or off, and these are the documents that are available from Microsoft, just to look at what's available on the start menu and what you can find in the notifications area. And these are, if you want to really become a very well-read Windows administrator, I would highly recommend reading through these things, especially if you haven't used Windows 11 before, if you're still on Windows 10, which is actually the installation that's on my computer. So there's a lot of different things that you can learn just from going through the documentation on Microsoft's website, because they have literally everything that you would need. So there is all of that information that you would be able to get directly from their website. You can right click any folder, file, or program to view more information or perform other actions on that clicked item. So this item right here, this can be wonderful for you. So we're currently inside of Google Chrome. Inside of Google Chrome, there's a series of options that are available. When you right click, if I highlight something and click that, you see that there's different series of options that are available. If I click on a link, you can see that there's a different series of options that are available. So this right click thing is something that I actually use intuitively all the time, and I don't even think about it. It's become it has become second nature and like a second language, and I do it very, very intuitively. And so this is one of those things that again, I feel like you probably already know, so I don't think I'm telling you anything that you haven't already seen or checked out, but it always helps to get a full overview of the fundamentals when you're going into these operating systems, just so you really know what's going on. So, which selection will hide and display the search box? Hidden will hide and display the search box. Which selection will hide and disable the task view button, which is show task view button? And besides clock and network, what other icon is visible in the notification area? And then we have the action center. So just to kind of show you how these things were brought up. So I feel like now I can actually zoom out of the current view that I have. So we can pull up the virtual machine that we have over here, and we can interact with it a little bit, because those are the answers obviously that you see, but this is actual virtual machine, right? So that's our Windows machine that we see on the right hand side. So now the question here, let me just make sure that I'm fully zoomed out. So the first question is, which will hide and display the search box? So if I click on this, if I right click on this, right, you can see the various options that show up. And the hide and display of the search box, let's see. So if we right click on it, let's zoom in here. And if we go to search, we can see that there's these options right here. So hidden will actually hide or display it. Show search icon, show search box. So if I click on hidden, I can now see that there is no search box available. So now I can go back, right click on the taskbar, go to search, and then from hidden, go show search box, and it'll show me the search box. So now the next one, which selection will hide or disable the task view button, which is this button that we see right here, the task view. So if we right click on that and then we go to show task view button, that would be it. And essentially, I mean, that's really it. So show task view button is the button. And then besides the clock and network, what other icon is visible in the notification area? So if we go right here and we just go to this general area, we can see that we have show hidden icons, we have the network itself, we have the date and whatever, and then this thing at the bottom right here, no new notifications. So if we look at, let's see, what can we find that will give us the name of it. Okay, so I just had to open it in a full screen just to kind of get a little bit better view of this bottom right hand corner right here, and my own documents kind of get in the way. Now that's gotten in the way. That's so annoying. Let me just click on that to get it out of the way. So this piece right here, what you see right here, the no new notifications, this piece is called the Action Center. So if you actually click on that, a new pop-up will show up and it says no new notifications, so on and so forth. This piece, this whole thing right here, this is called the Action Center. It's not right clickable, so I can't right click on it to do anything. I can right click on these individual pieces and go to their settings, but that's essentially it. And that's what that Action Center is, that we can see right here. So you if you just look it up, so if I do Windows 10 Action Center icon, this is the piece that you can see right here. So if I click on the image that's presented to us, that's what it is. This is the Action Center. And in our specific machine, there was nothing because it's a brand new machine and we haven't opened up any software, so you can't really tell what it is. But that essentially is it. There's a variety of options that are presented to us here. And the new notifications would be if you had news connected or if you had any other software that was connected that would send you notifications. And this would all be under your Action Center. So that's what the Action Center is. So that's all we got so far for our desktop GUI. So let's now go into the file system. The file system that's used in modern Windows is the NTFS, the New Technology File System. Before NTFS, there was FAT16 and FAT32. I love saying those names. I don't know why. FAT stands for File Allocation Table, and then HPFS, which was the High Performance File System. So these are the legacy versions of these file systems. And then you'll see FAT partitions in use still today. For example, you can see it in USB drives, which I see regularly when we format our USB drives. I'm currently, as I record these series of content, I'm also working on the Linux Plus certification series. And for that, we have a full section dedicated to file systems and the various formattings of the file systems. And we talk about formatting our USB drive for an installation of Linux on our USB drives. And once you go into the formatting, you will see all of these options, right? So do you want to format it to NTFS? Do you want to format it for Mac OS? Do you want to format it to FAT16 and XFS and da-da-da-da-da? So there's a lot of different things that you can do with that. Traditionally, they're not on personal Windows computers, though. So the FAT partitions schemes, they're not typically on actual computers typically anymore. They're mostly on USB devices. So NTFS is known as a journaling file system. So if there's a failure, if the computer crashes, for example, the system can automatically repair based on the most recent journal entry that was inside of that log file. The function is not possible with FAT. So FAT is not a journaling file system or a file schema. So NTFS addresses many of the limitations from the previous file systems. For example, files larger than 4 gigabytes, which is very common these days. Specific permissions on folders and files, folder and file compression, encryptions of file systems. And if you're running Windows, the file system or Windows installation, depending on your actual version of Windows, right? You can check the properties, right click on the drive of your operating system installed, and typically it's in drive C, and then you can go ahead and check out what it is. So if we go here and click on that and go to properties, you can see what the file system is, right? So let's actually do that with the machine that we're on here. So if I go into our machine here and I just open up my file explorer, which is this right here, and I click on this PC, I have local disk, and I click on that and I open up the properties of that, and it'll show me. This is also an NTFS file system on this computer. So let us move on to the next piece. So you can read more on the documentation for FAT, HPFS, and NTFS here. We're going to speak briefly about the features specific to NTFS, which would be the permissions to grant or deny access. So for example, would be full control, modify, read and execute, list folder contents, read and write. These are the permissions that are available on NTFS, and you can assign them to essentially any file or folder. This is what each of these things mean. So if somebody has read only, they can only view and list the files and subfolders. They can't do anything else really. For example, they wouldn't be able to write to it, right? So executing something has to be a completely separate permission. So if they can read it and execute it, that means that they can run whatever that file or folder is. They would need read, write, and execute if they were going to be able to write to it, right? So that's very important to understand. There's a lot of employees of a company that can have read and execution rights, but they can't write to it because the administrators don't want the employees to be able to modify those specific files or folders. They just want you to be able to access it and run whatever's inside of it. Then you have listing of the folder's contents, right? So you can view and list the files and folders as well as the stuff inside of those folders, and you can execute the files inherited by the folders. So if the folder itself gives you execution permission, then anything that's inside of that folder you can also execute. And then there's modification, so reading, writing of files or subfolders, and allows the deletion of the folder, which is a new skill or a new permission that's available. And then we have full control. So you can read, write, change, delete, add. You can do any kind of modification whatsoever. And this is typically only reserved to the administrators that have been assigned by the domain controller. So you're not going to find very many people that have full control of an entire system's file system, especially in an enterprise environment. Typically, what you can expect as an employee is to probably have read and execution permissions, and everything that's inside of your home folder you can probably create and delete and modify and all that stuff. But when it comes down to the system, the shared folders, you're only allowed to view and probably execute. So how can you look at the view of the permissions of a file or a folder? So you can right click on the file or a folder, check on the properties, and then go to security, and you can see group or usernames list, and then select the user computer or group whose permissions that you want to view. So for example, you can have the local disk, Windows, and then once you open it up under security, you can see group or username, and you can see these various groups or usernames. And then so you click on users, and it'll show you. It says you can read and execute, list folder contents, read. You can't write to the Windows folder. You can't modify the Windows folder. You do not have full control of the Windows folder. So that's how you can view it, right? So let's try that out real quick. So if we went to, let's say, because these are all the ones that are assigned to my specific user, so most likely I will actually have all of the permissions for that. So if I right click on desktop, and if I go to security under desktop, and then you see that there's the system, there's the administrator, which is my current user, and then there's another administrators, right? So there's the administrator user and then the administrators group. So if I look at any of these, we can see that we have all of the permissions, right? We have full control, modify, read, execute, list contents, all of that stuff. Special permissions I do not have. And that's actually something that's very interesting, that we can click on advanced and see what would be available under special permissions. So for example, there's the auditing tab, and then there's the effective access tab. So special permissions may typically be assigned to administrators or people that we call the pseudo group if we're talking about Linux. But for the most part, I have every single permission that I should have because it's my desktop. So I can go here and I can click new and create a new folder, and I can also delete that folder. I can delete this icon of Google Chrome from my desktop. It doesn't mean that I'm going to delete Google Chrome, because that would probably be something that's inside of the system in general, so I might not be able to get access to deleting the actual software. I probably can't do that, although I am actually logged in as an administrator, so I can probably do that actually. But for the most part, everything that's on my desktop, because it is my user desktop, everything here I can do. All of the modifications I can do, I can read, write, all the permissions that you just saw. So There's the Microsoft documentation, obviously, for special permissions. Another feature of NTFS is the alternate data streams, which is a file attribute for Windows NTFS. Every file has at least one data stream, which is by the data variable. So if you have a $sign and then the data in all caps, this is considered the data variable. And the ADS, the alternate data stream, allows files to contain more than one stream of data. So native Windows Explorer doesn't display ADS to the user. There are third-party executables that can be used to view this data, but PowerShell gives you the ability to view the ADS for files. From a security perspective, malware writers have used the ADS to hide data. So this is why this is important, right? So not all of the uses of the ADS for the data variable, they're not all malicious, but when you download, for example, when you download a file from the internet, there are identifiers written to the ADS to identify that the file was downloaded from the internet. To learn more about it, we can go to the Malwarebytes article here. If you wish to interact hands-on with the ADS, I suggest exploring day 21 of Advent of Cyber 2, which is actually something that they always launch on TryHackMe every single year. And so this is the alternate data streams introduction, right? So we can see what streams actually are. We can get item using a commandlet from Windows PowerShell. We can set the item, search for ADS, remove ADS, so on and so forth. So if you actually want to check it out, which again would be extra homework for you, be like, what do they call it? Extra credit homework, right? If you wanted to do that, go to the Malwarebytes article on their website and check that out. And if you want to interact with the ADS, we should go to Advent of Cyber, which is a completely different pathway, so I'm not going to talk about it over here. So what is the meaning of NTFS? That is the New Technology File System. And that is all we got. That's all she wrote for the file system. So let's move on to the Windows and System32 folders. The Windows folder is known as the folder that contains the Windows OS. It doesn't have to reside in the C drive necessarily. It can reside in any other drive and technically can reside in a different folder entirely. This is where the environment variables and system variables specifically come into play. Even though that we haven't discussed them, the system environment is for the Windows directory, which is this piece right here. So the percentage piece right here that you see, this is referred to as a given variable for the environment, but what happens is that the name for it, so the actual visual name could be different, but when you use this specific variable, it will just pull that up. So for example, if we did the percentage and then we put the environment variable for a local user, the local user could be administrator, it could be user 1, it could be Hank, any of those things. But when you use the environment variable, what happens is that it just pulls that up no matter what the name is, right? So environment variables store information about the OS environment. The information includes details like the operating system path, the number of processors, and the location of the temporary folders, etc. And there are a lot of stuff that also have environment variables. There are a lot of folders inside of the Windows folder, which you can see right here. And this is obviously not even the full list because we're just at the top of the list. So it's a massive, massive folder. It has a lot of stuff in it. And these are all the system variables. These are the system processes, right? So inside of the Windows folder, there's another very important folder, which is the System32 folder. And the System32 folder is another one of those really important folders. It holds the important files that are critical for the OS. You should always proceed with extreme caution when interacting with the System32 folder, because anything that you do, especially, for example, if you delete a file or modify a file that's inside of System32, can actually stop the Windows OS from operating altogether. It can just ruin the computer, and then you would have to wipe the installation of Windows and then reinstall Windows altogether, and that could potentially delete data and a lot of stuff. So it's very, very, very important that you keep this piece in mind, right? You can interact with a lot of the other stuff that's inside of the Windows folder, right? So for example, I mean, I don't know, honestly, most of these things I still wouldn't mess with. Maybe the fonts folder. Like the fonts folder is something that you can mess around with and it won't affect the system's performance, right? You can delete a font and then whatever, you deleted a font. You can add a font, whatever. But when you go into the System32 folder, you cannot mess with these things. That's just let's keep that in mind, okay? You cannot mess with any of the stuff that's inside here. because any of the messing of these pieces right here can actually affect with the system. So unless you know how to configure, which I don't know anybody, I don't know a single person that knows how to build an operating system. So unless you were part of the people that were trained on the coding of Windows and you know how to deal with the code and how to, I have no idea how to do that. So I stay completely away from it. That's very important. There are pieces that we have used inside of pen testing exercises that had to do with the System32 folder, but it was literally like step-by-step instructions that were provided that we followed to do it, and we didn't delete anything. We just added something to System32 so that we can get certain permissions so that we can execute certain things, but we didn't delete anything. And that's a very, very important thing to understand. Deleting something from the System32 folder can stop the operating system from operating completely. It can just ruin your computer. So just keep that in mind. A lot of the tools I covered in the Windows Fundamental reside in the Windows 32 folder. So this is a big piece of all of the training series that we're going to be doing inside of the Windows Fundamentals series. So what is the system variable for the Windows folder? And we have it right here. It is the %windir percentage, WINDIR percentage, this is what we found at the top of this right here. So making good progress here. Let's talk about user accounts and profiles and permissions. User accounts come in two types. You have the administrator user and then you have the standard user. The user account type determines what type of actions that user can perform. So for example, the admin can make changes to the system. They can add users, delete users, modify groups, settings, a lot of other things that an admin should be able to do. The standard user can only make the changes that they've been given permission to do, right? And they can access and make any changes to their desktop or their user files and folders, but they can't do system level changes. So installing programs, for example, is typically not allowed for a standard user. You would have to get permission from your system administrator to be able to install any given program if you want to use it for your day-to-day activities, so on and so forth. We are currently logged in as the admin. So we already saw that when we just looked at the permissions of the properties of this particular desktop folder, right? So if I go over here, go to security again, and it says that I am the administrator user, right? But there are other ways that we can do this as well. If I click on the Windows button at the bottom right here, and then go to my little icon for my actual user, which is this piece, you can just hover over it and it says I'm the administrator. If I click on it, if I go to change account settings, it'll open up the Windows settings for here, and then it says that you are the administrator user, and then that's the administrator role that I have over here. So these are just a couple of the ways. And then so it says click the start menu, type other user, a shortcut to system other users should appear, which is this piece right here. And then if you click on it, a settings window will now appear. And then I guess this has this other user as well. Since you're the administrator, you have the option to add someone else to this PC. A standard user will not see this option. So click on the local user account. More options should appear, like change account type and remove. So let's actually do that, right? So if we went over here, I'm just going to close this up, right? Oh, actually, it was right there. It was literally right there. So I could actually just click on this, click on my icon, and click change account settings, and it will bring me to this place. And then we have other users right there. And other user right here is the TryHackMe local account. And then we can even add someone else to this series or to these other users. Click on the local user account. More options should appear. Change account type and remove. So if I click on this, change account type and remove is right there. Click on the change account type. So if I click on the change account type, it brings this up. Standard user or administrator. I can actually turn TryHackMe into a standard user or administrator. When the user account is created, a profile is created. The location for each user profile will be inside of the users folder. For example, the user profile for the user account max will be in users max. Creation of the user profile is done upon initial login. When a new user account logs into a local system for the first time, they'll see several messages on the login screen. One of the messages, user profile service, sits on the login screen for a while, which is at work creating the user profile. So the user profile service, when you try to log in, that's what happens. Once it's logged in, the user will see a dialog box similar to the one below, indicating that the user profile is in creation. Each user profile will have the same folder, so desktop, documents, etc. Another way to access this information and then some is using the local user group management. And right click on the start menu, click run, and then you can do this specifically, or you can just type in local user group and management. This is the actual, let me see if I can just copy that and paste it inside of this piece right here. So if I can go here, if I do run, I think I can actually also do Control R. Let's see if that works. Nope, it doesn't. So I can do run, and when you do run, it runs any app by its specific short code, I guess we can call it, and we can just paste what that piece was right here, and then do OK, and then it'll bring this up, the local user group and management window, and then you can see it. These are all the local user groups and management. So if we click on user, we'll see administrator, guest, the TryHackMe, Billy, so on and so forth. We have all of these guys, right? So when the run dialog box opens items quickly, so that's one of the pieces that we want to kind of keep in mind here. If you actually know the specific code for this, so this I call it a code, I don't know if that's the technical term. If you actually know that and you can run it inside of the run dialog box, it opens it fairly quickly. As you saw, it was instantaneous, even though we have a fairly slow virtual machine. So back to the L user manager, you should see the two folders. We have users and groups, which you already saw. If you click on groups, you'll see all the names of the local groups along with brief descriptions. Each group has a permission set to it, and the users are assigned by the administrator. When a user is assigned to a group, the user inherits the permissions of that group. Keep that in mind. And user can be assigned to multiple groups. So if you click on add someone else to this PC from other users, it will open local users and management, which we already saw already. What is the name of the other user account? TryHackMe Billy, which we already saw right here. TryHackMe Billy. That's where he is. If you just open that, TryHackMe Billy, there he is. What group is this user a member of? So if I click on this, it's the TryHackMe Billy. And if I scroll here, oh, their description, Windows Fun. That's probably the flag that we need for this. If we go to groups, and oh my god, there's too many groups, so I'm going to click on this and just open up this guy and see member of, and then we can see inside member of we have remote user desktop or remote desktop users, and we have users. Those are the two groups. So remote desktop users and users are the groups that he's a member of. What built-in account is for guest access to the computer? So if we go back to this right here, you can literally see guest is the built-in account, and it says it. Built-in account for guest access to the computer domain. And then what is the account description for this guy right here? So we already saw that. TryHackMe Billy, Windows Fun, etc. That is that. So pretty good. We're making some good progress here. Let's move on to user account control, UAC. It's a very, 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 very important concept here. Majority of home users, meaning majority of people who have Microsoft Home for their personal computer, are logged into Windows as the local administrator. So from the previous task, we saw that any user with administrator as the account type can make any kind of changes to the system. And obviously, if it's just your computer, you would have to be the admin. Otherwise, how are you going to download things, and how are you going to modify things and add other users, so on and so forth. A user doesn't need to run with high or elevated privileges on the system to run tasks that don't require like privileges like that. So as surfing the internet, for example, or working on a Word document don't require elevated privileges. The elevated privilege increase is the risk of it increases the risk of the system compromise because it makes it easier for malware to infect the system. And since the user account can make changes to the system, the malware would run in the context of the logged in user. So if the logged in user is the administrator and the malware runs as an administrator, it can do a lot of damage. So to protect the local user with those privileges, Microsoft introduced user account control. This concept was introduced with the very first Windows Vista, and then continued with the other Windows options that followed. So UAC doesn't apply to the built-in local administrator account. but it does apply to essentially every other account that the administrator creates. When a user with an account type of administrator logs into the system, the current version, the current session, doesn't run with elevated permissions. When the operation requires elevated privileges, the user will be prompted to confirm if they want that to run, and then they have to enter their administrator password. So for example, you can open up a command line as just a regular user, but if you want to run admin privileges, I might as well actually just show you this, because this is kind of very important to keep in mind here. So most of these things, you can actually right click on it, and it gives you this option of run as an administrator, so that you don't have to be prompted to enter your password or do a lot of things to confirm what you want to do. And this essentially applies to anything, right? Anything that you open up, you can say that you want to run it as an administrator. If I don't do that, it'll just run it normally. And this is one of the big things that is also when we do our pen testing exercises, or when we do other SysAdmin exercises. If we wanted to open up the command prompt again, you can right click on it and you can run it as an administrator. If you don't, it'll run it normally. And when it runs it normally, look, it says user admin. And then if I go into run as administrator, it'll give me actually a different prompt. Or, well, no, you know what? Since I guess I am the admin, it doesn't matter in this case. Both of them are user admin, but typically it's in the other exercises. So if we were that TryHackMe Billy guy, if we were that guy, we would run it, and right here it would say TryHackMe Billy. And then if Billy had admin privileges and we ran it as run as administrator, this would actually change into something else. And typically it actually changes to System32. It doesn't change to administrator, even though when you do an administrator command prompt, if you open it as an admin, it actually changes to System32 instead of running as the admin. Nevertheless, you can run things as an admin to avoid entering your password constantly to verify that you are the admin. So one of the big things that we can do would be to, for example, as a test here, we can check whether or not the permissions of any given program allow this to run. So for example, in the security tab of Wireshark, right, we can look at the users and groups and notice that the standard user is not listed here. So for example, here, right, so we have the system, the admin, and administrators. These are the only groups or the group users that are allowed to run Wireshark specifically, because Wireshark is actually a traffic sniffing, packet sniffing type of a software. So you don't want just anybody to be able to run Wireshark to sniff the traffic on your network, on your system. So you would want Wireshark to only be accessible by an admin. If you log in as a standard user to try to install a program, to do this, you can do remote desktop and use the standard user account, which we had previously, which was the guy at the very, very top right here. I think it was this one that, no, this is administrator let me in, logging as a standard user. I don't think that would even be possible. So I feel like maybe the TryHackMe Billy guy is the standard user. That might be the case. Not exactly sure. What do we see? Where were we? So we can log in as a standard user and try to install the program. To do this, you can remote desktop into the machine as the standard user account. You can have the username and password for the standard user. It's visible in this. So that was the standard user, which was TryHackMe Billy. Before installing the program, notice the icon. Do you notice the difference? When you logged in as the standard user, the shield icon is the default icon. See below. And then we can see the shield icon is the indicator. The UIC will prompt you to allow higher level privileges to install the program. Double click the program and you can see that the UIC prompt, it says, do you want to allow this to make a difference? To continue, enter the administrator's password. After some time, if the password is not entered, it disappears and the program does not install. This feature reduces the likelihood of malware successfully compromising your system, and you can read more about it here. So that was really it. I mean, I can do this. I wonder if I should even do this because it just tells us exactly what's supposed to happen. So in the in interest of brevity, I'm not going to do it. There are two ways that you can do it. However, you can just go here to the login portion. We can do this, and we can disconnect, which will just kick us out. We can go here and we can sign out. And once you sign out, you'll still be inside of the Windows instance, and it'll ask you to log in, and then you would have to provide the username and password. So in that particular case, it could be the one that we found from user accounts and profiles, which was the TryHackMe Billy guy, which is this. This would be the user account, and then their password was Windows Fun, which was the that's what you can use to log in as TryHackMe Billy. And once you do that, you'll be able to see these specific pieces right here. So it'll change the icon from what is available, which is the normal icon. So this is the normal icon, right? It has this downward arrow, meaning that it's a download, it's an installer, right? So Wireshark installer for Windows. That's what the description says. If you were to log in as the standard user, that icon changes into this shield right here. And the shield means that it's protected, essentially. That's what it means. And if you try to run the installer, you'll get this notification that says, hey, enter the administrator password, because we want to make sure that you have permission to do this. So do you have permission to run the install? And if you don't have the admin password, you should not be able to run that install. And that's what that whole process means. So that's what user account control really means, right? So it's essentially implied by the name, right? You're controlling what user accounts can do. And you're controlling the creation of user accounts, the configuration of user accounts, so on and so forth. So that's what user account control is. Now let's go into the settings and the control panel. This is where any changes that you want to make can happen. So the settings menu and the control panel is the central location, as the name implies, right? Control panel. So for a long time, the control panel was the go-to location to make system changes, like adding a printer, uninstalling a program. The settings menu was introduced in Windows 8, and the first Windows operating system catered to touchscreen tablets and is still active in Windows 10. As a matter of fact, the settings menu is now the primary location that a user goes to if they want to change the system. So there are similarities and differences between the two menus. So this is the settings menu, for example. So you have Windows settings, system, devices, network, internet, yada, 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 yada. This is the control panel. Very similar. System security, user accounts, network and internet, yada, 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 yada. The icons for the settings might be different from the version, what we're running on your actual computer. So I think in the one that we're running, it'll actually be exactly the same. So if I actually go to the settings menu, so let's go here. We're just going to click on the settings icon at the bottom, and it's pretty much exactly the same. So that's the settings menu that we see right here. And if I go back down here, I can see the control panel right there. So where's the control panel? Boom. We got the control panel. So pretty much identical to what we just saw in the lab, right? These are the various options that we have, the settings and the control panel. Now, to access it, you can see that we just did exactly what we did here. Now, the control panel is a menu where you will access more complex settings and perform more complex actions. You can start in settings and end up in control panel in a lot of cases. So let's say that we click on network and internet. From here, you want to change the adapter option. So click on that. Once you click on network and internet, this will be change adapter options. So if we go here, network and internet, and then we can see on the very, very front of it, you can see change adapter options. The next window that pops up is from the control panel. So if I click on that, it'll be a control panel menu that opens up, which takes us to the Ethernet. And that can also be shown here. So if I actually click on network and internet here, we can also get to that specific menu for changing the adapter option. So in this particular case, it was control panel, network and internet, and network connection. So if I'm already in network and internet, as you can see here, and what we want is network connections. So network connections will probably be, so there's actually no direct link to it. So that's very interesting to me. So within the control panel, network and internet section, there was no direct link to it. I actually clicked around on all of these things, and it brought up various options, but it didn't take us directly to this piece where it says change adapter options, which brings us to network connection. So that's interesting. So you would have to probably start from the settings and then that will take you inside of the control panel as they implied, right? So there we go. So if you're unclear which to open, if you wish to change settings, choose the start menu and search for it, which we already talked about. So you can essentially search for anything. So wallpaper was something that they searched for, and it brought up the option for that. If you click on the best match, a Windows settings menu will appear and it'll take you to that exact location. So for example, changing your wallpaper. So in the control panel, change the view to small icons. What is the last setting in the control panel view? So in the control panel, change the view to small icons. Okay, so let's go to the control panel. Here's the control panel. Small icons, I mean, it's already here, I think. So we can do view by category, small icons. There it is. And then now it says, what is the last setting in the control panel view? And the last setting would be, I would say, I think it's Windows Defender Firewall. I think this is the last setting here. Because if it's going in this way, so if it's going left to right, right? And then we're going to get over here. So we have troubleshooting user accounts in Windows Defender Firewall. And there it is, Windows Defender Firewall. So there we go. And that's all we got for the settings and control panel. So let's go into the task manager and wrap it up. The task manager provides information about the applications and processes that are currently running on the system. So you can find how much CPU and RAM are being utilized. That falls under performance. But most likely you have used the task manager before, and the way that I used to access it was doing Control-Alt-Delete, which would take me to the home page, and then from there I would click task manager. But you could literally just click right click over here. Actually, excuse me, over here, I believe. Yeah, there we go. So you would have to click on the task bar at the bottom, and then from there click task manager, and it opens it up, right? And then usually what I would do is that when a program is not properly running, I would right click on the program, and then I would end that task. And what it would do is it would force end it, or you could just click on this end task right here, and it would force close it, right? That's what I used to use it for, because that was basically the depth of the knowledge that I had. But you can get a lot of information about the various tasks, the various processes, as you already actually saw right here. So if we go back over here and we look at the task manager, we can see the processes that are currently running. We can also see performance statistics of how much CPU and RAM is being used, the Ethernet. We can look at the administrator user, or essentially any users that may be logged in and what they have open under them. We can look at the details of the computer. We can look at the services that are running. So a lot of great information can be found inside of the task manager. We can click on more details and view the changes that can be done, which is what we actually saw right here. And we can refer to the blog post that's available for the task manager if you want to learn more about what can be done with the task manager. The task manager can actually also be used in a variety of ethical hacking and pen testing exercises, but that is beyond the scope of this room. So if you want to learn more about it, you can look at the core Windows processes room, which, let's see, do we have I think there should actually even be a video for this. I think there is a video for this. So if you look for core Windows processes on the homepage of our channel, if you just click on the search button and search that up, you'll definitely be able to find that video as well. So if you want to jump ahead, you can. But I do recommend that you just hang out with us as we go through the rest of the CySec 101 Windows series to just make sure that it's all good. Control-Shift-Escape, Control-Alt-Delete is what I used to do. The keyboard shortcut to open the task manager, I guess these days, is this. So if I go to the article here and I do shortcut, so the shortcut search, we just do it right here. So many ways to launch the task manager. Control-Shift-Escape is to open it with a keyboard shortcut, and then it'll still take you to that window, and that's what we got over here. So there you go. That's all we got for the task manager. So in conclusion, as you saw, this was very much a generic overview of the Windows operating system. There are a lot of different things that you can talk about when it comes down to Windows for each of these individual tasks that we went through. So this was very much an overview and generic, kind of a general overview of this. So we looked at the detailed blog post, which was the very last piece that we have over here explaining the task manager. So that's one of the examples of getting more intermediate and advanced knowledge of each of these things. You can always just Google it as well and just find all of the Microsoft documentation to be able to find what you're looking for. So what we're going to be talking about would be the Windows folder, the management console security tools, which is the Windows firewall and the Defender, and all of those things in the future modules. So this is just the starting point for our fundamentals of Windows. And hopefully, if you already use Windows, maybe this gave you a different perspective of how you can interact with the Windows machine and where you can find certain data and information that you might need. So that is all she wrote for this particular video. If you found this video useful, I do encourage you to like, subscribe, and share so that you can get access to our future videos. And definitely make sure that you turn on that notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out, especially in the CySec 101 series, the Cybersecurity 101 series, because we're going to have the fundamentals part 2 and 3 of Windows, and then we're going to go into Active Directory as well. And then you can just find all the other videos that we have available on the homepage of the channel. There's a lot of stuff over here. And then if you click on the search button right here, you'll be able to search for a variety of different topics as well. Just look for what you're looking for, and then you'll find the videos that come with it. There's literally a lot of videos. There's over 224 videos as of the recording of this particular video. So by the time that you probably watch this, there's going to be even more videos on this channel. And yeah, definitely just make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out. And then drop a comment if you have any questions, and then I will respond to your comment via the comment section. Or if it's a really big question, I'll actually create a video in response to your comment. So you'll definitely get your answer in some way, shape, or form. And then there's the Hackaholics Anonymous membership community, which is the premier YouTube community for security professionals and hackers. I've worked on this a lot, and I'm continually working on this. Our membership group is growing, so I'm very excited about it. And there's a lot of perks that are associated with it. If you come in as a cyber supporter, which is our very first tier, you'll still get access to me via the Discord channel and all of our advanced members, so you can get all of your communications answered, and you can have somebody with you to go along this journey of cybersecurity and hacking, which is a massive journey. And then our advanced tiers like the Cyber Agent, Cyber Guardian, Cyber Master, they get a lot of different perks like the individual download. So there's script downloads, so Python automations that they get. There is exclusive content. There's exclusive downloads. There is merch. There's so much stuff that's associated with it. Of course, they have their own Discord servers, and there's monthly live streams and all of those things as well. So there's a lot of stuff that's available to these people. And just to find out what perks are available and what might interest you, you can either watch this short little 14-minute video, or you can click on the read more button right there, and in the description you'll get all the breakdowns for it. So in either case, in any way, shape, or form, I would very much like it for you to check out Hackaholics Anonymous. I think you will be pleasantly surprised. I know for a fact you will not be disappointed, and I look forward to seeing you in the Discord chats. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker / protector. Love, peace, and chicken grease. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.